Welcome all sports fans, YouTubers, Facebookers, all social media across the nation. UnEducated Network presents Uneducated Sports Talk. I'm your host, Carlos Clayton, with my man, Brian Wilkerson, B-Dub. What's up, baby boy? It's all good, Base on Balls. If you haven't checked that out, check it out in the upcoming days because, baseball season is right around, or the playoffs are right around the corner, so check that out. Got a lot of insight on that. With that being said, we're not talking baseball. We're talking college football. This is our college football casual talk for week 5, I believe. Week 5. So, yeah, our 5th week doing this, y'all. So, week 5 is here among us. And, like always, start with the top 10, my brother.
All right, well, 1 through 4 remains unchanged. Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Penn State round out the top 4. Unless something crazy happens in the next week, I'm pretty sure you can pencil that in until we start getting to the actual playoff rankings. Georgia moves up 1 spot to number 5. By virtue dropping Washington number 6. Michigan jumps up. Wisconsin jumps up. That'll be 7 and 8. I'm sorry, not 7 and 8. TCU at 8. TCU is in there at 8. Michigan is number 7. TCU in at 8. Wisconsin in at number 9. And Ohio State back in the top 10 this week to round out that number 10 spot.
I just completely skipped TCU. Huh? I don't know why. I got to send somewhere right here. That's probably what happened. I put it right there. But anyways, out of that top 10, anything that alarms you, anything that you want to talk about?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing strange here.
This was this particular week. You didn't have that many marquee games. You did have USC against Washington State, and then you had I believe it was LSU and Troy. We'll talk about that in a minute. That was crazy. But then you also had Georgia against Tennessee, and then the big one was Clemson and Virginia Tech. But in this top 10 here, top 4 remains the same. It's strong though. That's why I like the top 7.
It is a
strong. When you go Bama and Clemson, Oklahoma, you got Penn State, Georgia, Washington. That right there, strong teams, and I like that. Then you get to the second tier guys. The Michigans will have their issues, and then you have the Wisconsins and the Ohio States, and mainly it's all Big Ten teams. But they have like their issues. But the top 7, I think, is very strong. That's what I like about that.
So a month into the season, I'm going to just shoot this one out at you real quick.
Okay.
I'm not looking for a real long answer, but Bama and Clemson, 1-2. Is it Alabama and Clemson and then everybody else? Or is the top 4 a legitimate top 4 where anybody could be that?
Well, based off of last year, you think, because it's Bama and Clemson than everybody else, just as what happened last year. But right now, I wouldn't sleep on Penn State, and I'm not sleeping on Georgia.
All right.
I'm not sleeping on those two teams. Nah, anymore. I'm not. I'm not sleeping on them. I slept on Georgia, and you woke me up with those guys, man. But it's not Bama and just Clemson. I think that Georgia has the talent to beat those guys, and I think Penn State with just who they are, their running back situation, and their offense and their defense. Their defense is going to play every single game. It seems like it. So I think that they have a chance to beat a Bama or a Clemson team. But like I said, it's still early. We'll find out. A lot more games to go, man. With that being said, we had our Team Brian versus Team Carlos for the Washington State versus USC. I was USC. He was Wazoo.
State.
And Wazoo went ahead and win 30-27.
1-0.
So that being said, it was a great game. It was on a Friday night. It was after dark. I think the game started at 9:30 Central Time.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine
that West Coast.
West Coast.
Good West Coast football.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good. Sam Darnold has completely threw himself out of the Heisman race. He was 50% done last week, and he's just
he's completely done.
Yeah, he's done. Not the same guy we saw last year. It was funny because I saw in the stands, some of the fans had a New York Jets Sam Darnold jersey. And I'm pretty sure he threw it away and burned it by the end of the game. I just figured that this guy, but it says that last year coming down, he had me fooled because I was like, this guy has the it factor. He has the necessary body type, the arm mechanics, and then even before the game started, it was funny because the reporter said he was kind of doubting himself. And if you're the leader of this program and you have the spotlight, the last thing I want to hear from my leader is you're actually having second guesses and doubts about yourself and your ability to play this game. They went into Wazoo, and it was a fiery crowd, and Wazoo did what they had to do. They played their first 5 games at home.
Yeah.
Washington State did. First 5 games, man. I just thought it was crazy. But
it's going to be a long road trip.
Yeah, it's going to be a long road trip for those guys, man. But 5 straight games, but
hey,
they took care of business, though. They took care of business.
Good thing for Mr. Darnold is he's a realist.
Okay.
He's a realist, having doubts. He's not performing well. Like you said, he's got the arm mechanics.
Right.
He can make the throws. He's got the arm. He's got the decision-making skills in the early parts of the game. He's got to find that Mr. Clutch.
Right.
He just doesn't come up clutch this season. I don't know what happened, but he lost the clutch gene, and he's lost them 2 games. So,
yes. I'm baffled at how he's playing. It's like night and day, to be honest with you. I'm very baffled. So USC suffers their first defeat, and we didn't really talk into it, but they dropped out the top 10 hard.
Yeah,
weren't they 5 last week?
They were 5.
They were
last
5.
week they were the number 5.
They are number 14 now. They dropped 9 spots, which I think is sort of ridiculous. I mean, you do go into Washington State, who was ranked 16th at the time. Now I believe they're ranked number 11 now. But they were 16th, and you lost to them by 3 points, and you dropped 9 spots. I thought that was crazy, but
there still are in excess of 15 undefeated teams.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
if you have that many undefeated teams, chances are, you lose, you're going to drop pretty far.
Right.
Now there are some one-loss teams up in the top, in the top 15s, but that's because that's teams with, brand names. Ohio State, your Ohio State's, your
Auburn.
USC's, your Auburn's still in the top 15. So. But
for USC, let's hope they get their act together because it's still a long season, but they had to win out now just to even be relevant for the top 4 to get in. They had to win out. But the next big game that was on the docket, Clemson goes into Virginia Tech. It was a hostile crowd. They were ready. It was 2 versus 12 at the time, and Virginia Tech fans they thought it was gone. It was me and you both picked Clemson, and for good reasons. Clemson just has a dynamic defense. They win 31-17 pretty easily. It shows it was only a 14-point game, but it was, in my opinion, it felt more like 24.
No,
it's just like they're just
close.
Yeah.
Clemson's defense had Virginia Tech's quarterback's number all game long. I believe they started their scoring off with a pick 6, if I remember right.
Something like that.
They just had his number all game long, even though they did give up the 17 points. It did not come easily.
It did not. No, you're right. It was that kind of game. It was a 14-point game for the whole entire game, but it felt like it was more. And that shows a great team. When you're only winning by 2 touchdowns, but you're imposing your will, it feels like Alabama.
Yeah.
This is basically the reincarnation of the Alabama, the Nick Saban Bama squad now. But now you got Dabo Swinney with Clemson. I want to know how you feel. Is this actually the next dynasty besides Alabama? We're talking Clemson.
They will be.
They will be.
They play in the ACC, which is a division that even though the SEC has stepped back a little bit, the ACC hasn't quite met that level of competition that the SEC had in its prime.
Right.
Like it's still only Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah.
In the ACC basically. In the prime of the run of the SEC, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Florida, they were just stomping on everyone.
It was nasty.
I mean, they play in an easier division. They play easier road games.
Right.
They do tend to play at least one SEC school a year. So, you can throw that in for flavor if you want to.
Yeah.
But the way these guys look, their defense is just as dynamic as Alabama, and their offense is better.
I'll say the offense is much better than Alabama.
It's just better.
And right now, I think Clemson, at this point, I believe is the best team in the nation. I was talking even above Alabama. But to your point, is it Alabama and Clemson? And you really want to sit there and you want to say no, but I don't want to get to that feeling where you get the top 4 and the Alabama and Clemson blows out their competition to face each other for a third time in a row. I hope it doesn't come that way, but as of right now, I don't think the 2 teams can be beaten by anybody right now. We want to talk about Georgia. This man has Georgia on the money. He said it like a month before the season started. Watch out for Georgia. And now I am a firm believer. They go into Neyland Stadium and they dismantle the Tennessee Volunteers. They got a volunteer ass whooping. they were volunteered for an ass whooping. Georgia goes in there and blows them out 41-0. A big goose egg, ladies and gentlemen. Goose egg from the Volunteers. They could not score a point against the Bulldogs. explain to me why are they so good? Once again, just why are they so
Georgia.
good? Yeah, Georgia.
Georgia. I'm gonna borrow a line from my man Wade Phillips from the Professionals. You do not give up the edge. Never, ever, ever give up the edge. Talking about on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Georgia does not give up the edge ever. Their line and their front seven is so they're quick. They look a lot like Clemson's front seven.
Right.
They're quick. They can get out to the edges. They set the edge and they play their position. They play their assignment and they don't play outside of themselves. And so when you do that and you set that edge, teams can't get outside of you. They can't throw outside of you. They can't run outside of you. And then all of a sudden, when you set that edge and it's a pass play and the quarterback has nowhere to go because your DBs can just run with whoever they want to, and they can play just man coverage like that straight up, that pocket's going to collapse on a quarterback really quick.
Right.
And now you're talking about negative plays. You're talking about forced throws. You're talking about fumbles. These are all things that starts with that front seven. Don't let up that edge. And not only do they not let up that edge, they got a couple of guys that can take up blocks in the center and just hold up running lanes.
Right.
So the quarterback's not sneaking out of the middle of the pocket either on them because they got that covered too. These guys just play ball on the line of scrimmage. And if you want to dominate somebody, if there's somebody you want to be like at Clemson and Alabama, what do? They dominate the line of scrimmage on defense.
That Georgia team was looking better and better, in my opinion, every single game. And that's the one team out of Penn State and Georgia. I have a lot more faith in Georgia than I have Penn State. The SEC is known for great running, great defense, but Georgia can do great running, great defense, and in times of the game, their quarterback to receiver combination is just as good as the defense. So that's why I think that they have a really good shot of, say, they do beat Alabama in the SEC championship. They have a great shot at beating just because their offense can put up points when needed to.
Yeah,
the receiving game.
That's what they proved this week.
Yes.
They've been winning big, but when you put up the shutout and you score 40 points.
I mean, regardless how Tennessee is this year, we know they're not really a really good team. It's still the SEC is still a rivalry of somewhat, and you got to show up. Every team you play, whether it's Tennessee versus Florida, Florida versus Georgia, Georgia versus LSU, LSU versus Alabama, those guys hear it from everybody about, they think they're better than you. Go prove that they're not. So Tennessee is, they're humans just like Georgia, and they heard all the noise, and then to put up 0 against Georgia, I thought it was outstanding. It was outstanding defense, outstanding offense. Georgia's the real deal. I'm loving them, man. But let's talk on the other side of the SEC, and it's tough to put LSU on that other side of the SEC now, when it was always Bama and LSU, and now to quote LSU haters, is LS who? Something like that. That's what they say. LSU.
Yeah. Welcome to the bottom 10.
Welcome
to the bottom 10.
LSU lose to Troy, who, by the way, 2 years ago they were 4-10 or 4-8 or something like that in the Sun Belt Conference. That's where they're from.
Sun Belt.
Sun Belt.
They're the only team with a winning record in the Sun Belt, by the way. In case you were curious if you didn't know that. They're the only team with a winning record.
They lose 24-21 to Troy. And I'll give you my take in a minute, but I just want to hear what you've got to say about LSU. Where does this... They were at 25. Now they're out of top 25. I would know that's...
Deservedly
the first time in a long time they're out of top 25 this late in the season, I would think, right?
The last LSU, this is the first time LSU's been unranked since midway through the 2014 season.
Okay, not that long ago.
So not that long ago, but this is LSU's first loss versus a non-conference opponent at home in over 15 seasons. 46 consecutive home non-conference victories was the longest active streak in the nation over anybody else.
You couldn't lose to a Florida State. You couldn't lose to someone. You had to lose to Troy.
Here's the strange thing. Troy, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that Alabama versus LSU rivalry. Auburn does it. Alabama does it. Troy is actually within the state of Alabama.
Right.
They show up to Death Valley and they play. Troy is actually infamous for giving up the largest comeback in LSU history. They were up 44-7, and LSU came all the way back
and what?
To win that game. Yeah, to win that game.
44-7
and the season. And the season they played them before that, also they came in and played a tight game and lost by a last-second field goal, 30-27.
Yeah, well.
So for whatever reason it is, Troy comes to LSU and they play, and they
know,
play really well.
Those pep talks get them hype. I know that for Troy. I don't know about Tennessee.
But yeah,
but Troy.
LSU. Look, everybody knows Ed Orgeron is not the coach that the athletic department wanted.
Right.
Joe Oliva needs to be fired. This man has no idea what he's doing. He can't handle this football program. You fire one of the winningest coach in the history of your organization, and the man who also has 2 national championships, by the way, just in case you were curious. He had 11 wins in, I believe it was 10 of his 12 seasons.
Right.
Those are absurd numbers. And then you're just going to fire him 3 games into a season for no reason, buy him out. By the way, if you are a prospective college football coach and you want to make sure you're financially stable, even if the team doesn't like you, go to LSU. They bought Les Miles out for $9 million. They're going to be paying him for another 6 years. The buyout on Coach Orgeron's contract, the coach that they didn't want to have, the buyout for his contract this season is $12 million.
Oh my!
So if you just want to go somewhere and just make sure you're going to be financially stable, even if they kick you out, go to LSU. They're going to pay you a lot of money. I don't know who's making these contracts or who's making any of these decisions, but they're making all the wrong decisions.
To keep Ed Orgeron, was that more of listening to fans? When fans were more on that, when Ed Orgeron, what game they won last year? That got them all hyped up. They won a game last year.
The Ole Miss. It started at the Ole Miss game.
Yeah, and they were all like, "Let's keep Ed Orgeron." Was it more just listening to fans, or did they really, really like Ed Orgeron?
This was we don't have anywhere else to go.
Okay.
We lost our guy. They wanted Tom Herman. They
Right.
wanted Tom Herman really bad, and Tom Herman's from Austin, Texas, so it's kind of hard to pass up that job, even though that's not somewhere I would want to coach. The boosters in that place are absolutely ridiculous. But so they didn't get their guy, and there was nowhere else to turn. So they just kept their interim coach. It's not the guy that they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest issue with this is that absolutely nothing has changed about the way this team runs offense, which is the reason that you fired the winningest coach in the history of your football program is because he didn't change his offense. Well, guess what? It's still the same offense. They still only they want to try and ground and pound you, but they don't push the ball or spread the field enough to open up the running lanes in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to run in the middle of the field, guess what? Everybody's going to stack 8 in the box, and you're not going to be able to go anywhere. And then if you're not practicing throwing the ball in practice, which it's got to be the only explanation because receivers are dropping balls left and right
like crazy. Yes.
So they obviously are not practicing these routes in practice. I don't know what they're doing, but so the combination of those two things, you're just not going to have a good offense. And your offense looks stale, and you don't put up points, and you lose to Troy because they came to play and they put up points.
People always ask me why are you from Louisiana and you don't go goo for LSU. Well, one, I don't have a single team that I root for in college. I just love college football. But two, the reason why I don't root for LSU is they don't change. They don't learn. They're doing the same crap for the last 7-8 years now. And you have one arch nemesis, which is Alabama. And the way to beat them, as we've seen, most teams who've beaten them or have come close to beating them, they spread them out. They spread them out, and they let their, LSU supposed to have these top-tier receivers over the last 5-6 years, you would think. Let them do the work, and, let them. And like you said, they don't. Obviously, they're not practicing that kind of stuff. You know that because receivers act like, when they see the ball, like, oh, so I'm actually getting the ball. Yeah. Drop.
And then you watch these guys go to the NFL and just ball out. Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, even when he was there, he didn't get a lot of touches. They didn't get a lot of touches. Yeah.
But these dudes just go on and have massive careers in the NFL for God knows what reason, and they don't. It's like they're under the radar at LSU.
It's not preached and it's not practiced. They're more of, we want to ground and pound you and make you feel us here. But when you face Alabama, they have the bigger ground and pound guys. And sometimes if you want to change, do something about it and change. They don't do that, and that's my problem with LSU.
Well, here's the thing, though. Even guys that don't throw the football, people that run the triple option,
right?
I mean, these guys literally live by not throwing. They throw maybe 4 to 10 passes a game. But guess what? They run to the outside. They pitch. They toss. They still spread
it out.
the field out to
Yes.
create running lanes.
Yes.
So if your play calling is stagnant within the first 2 quarters, where you're only throwing less than 30% of the time, that's a problem. And it's the same formula that Les Miles was using. It's the same formula that got him fired, and it's not change. And so if you're an LSU fan at this point, you're looking at this AD has to go.
Right.
Athletic director's got to go because he's not making
change it.
He's not making change, and he's not making the right
This
decision.
was a very embarrassing loss for LSU. I know that, like, very embarrassing. You come close to losing Detroit in the past, and like we said, but we always thought LSU's going to win that game, somehow win that game, right? And this one, even I thought they're going to somehow come back. It's just, it's Troy. To lose this game, it pretty much put the stamp on where LSU's going as a program, and things have to change very quickly, or they will find themselves unrelevant. I heard a rumor of one of the was it a 4-star commit, either a cornerback or I think a cornerback. After that loss, he decommitted from LSU. It was crazy. I don't know who it was. I don't want to put his name out there, but he decommitted. It was kind of big news. So I was like, it's that bad. So people are jumping ship on this, man.
This game was epitomized on the very first possession of the game. You're LSU. You are a running football team. You have quarterback issues, but you have a senior starter.
Right.
And your prized tailback, Darius Geis, is not in the game. And on the first play of the game, he's not in the game. Okay. Not only is he not in the game, your prized backup, Darrell Williams, who is a senior this year, totes the ball very well, downhill runner, the kind of LSU style running that you want. Also not in the game.
Who's in the freaking game? The fullback?
a junior by the name of Nick Bossett. And he runs up the middle for the first play and gets just absolutely demolished. Does not get lower than the defender. Gets picked up and thrown to the ground, fumbles the football, and Troy gets possession inside of LSU's own territory.
Were they punishing?
That is the worst, the actual worst start to a football game that you can have besides just fumbling the opening kickoff and just giving the other team the football. And then on top of, to make matters even worse, you let your starting quarterback play the first half of the game. You don't get close to winning because your play calling is questionable at best at this point. And then coming out of the half, you just decide for absolutely no reason that you're going to switch quarterbacks. Because why not put in the freshman when you still have a chance to win the game and your quarterback's doing fine, but your play calling is questionable? Why not do that? And then let him play the entire third quarter and score nothing. Not that he did anything that was any worse than what had been done for the previous half of football that was played, because they just don't allow quarterbacks to play at LSU for whatever reason. And then remove him from the game and put the starter back in the game. And LSU actually almost came back and won this game.
Right.
For God knows what reason. Danny Etling throws a touchdown pass. God forbid LSU throws a touchdown. They actually threw a touchdown pass. And then they actually threw another touchdown pass. And all of a sudden it was 21-24.
Right.
And they couldn't get the onside kick. But don't put yourself in that position. You cannot go into a game with no game plan, which is obviously what happened in this situation, because you don't just make ridiculous choices like that. You're starting the third
string running back for the first play of the game when your first two are very healthy.
You don't make ridiculous choices like that if you're attempting to win anything.
Right.
So, deservedly so, they're out of the top 25 and probably out of major title contention for the foreseeable future, unless they can come up with some form of coaching change. Wholesale coaching change.
SOS, help. That's what the LSU fans are screaming right now. We need some help. We need a coach. It'll be very interesting if they do get rid of Orgeron, who in the foreseeable future they will get as their next head coach. Because if you think it's LSU, it's got to be some kind of big name, maybe. But knowing LSU, they probably won't do that. Go that route. Let's talk about next week games. I believe, is that week 6 now, right?
Week 6.
Week 6, good, guys. Just flying by. It's not that many big games when it comes down to the top 25, but we do have West Virginia, who is ranked 23. They're going to face TCU, who's probably is ranked number 8 right now. Yes, they're still undefeated. They have Kenny Trill on their team. Anything about that game that kind of feathers your cap a little bit?
No, not particularly. It's kind of the same song and story as the big game a couple of weeks ago. TCU goes into Stillwater. Well, this time they're at home. But West Virginia looks a whole lot like Oklahoma State.
Right.
With a transfer quarterback, and Will Greer came over from Florida. And, basically TCU just needs to go in and do what they did versus Oklahoma State, and they come out with a win.
I think TCU wins as well. They're just now anyone in the Big 12. It doesn't shock me if they do lose. It would never ever shock me if a Big 12 team loses to a lower ranked Big 12 team. It just would never shock me at all. So after that, in my opinion, marquee game, which isn't really a marquee game, just shows you how bad the week is. Michigan State versus Michigan. Although Michigan State isn't the team that it once was, and Michigan still undefeated, but they're very shaky right now. The rivalry is what it's all about.
That's what this is all about.
Right.
I love this game, personally. I live in Louisiana, but I love watching this game every year. There's always something that happens in this game that you're just like,
well, 2
where
years
did
ago,
that come from?
the Michigan punt, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen live.
That's one of those plays that you remember what you were doing when you saw that play happen.
I was in front of my TV with my mouth wide open. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, no, that did just not happen. That did not happen, right?
And in recent years, no matter what Michigan State has been ranked, this game just seems to have those type of plays in it. So I can't wait to watch this.
I can't wait either. It's not the biggest marquee game, but in my opinion, it kind of is, just because of the rivalry. It's fitting that he has on the green for Michigan State. Team Brian, he's going for Michigan State. Team Carlos, I'm going for Michigan. Go Wolverines. Prove me right. So, guys, tell me how you feel about that. Are you Team Brian or Team Carlos? I got Michigan. He's got the State. You know what I'm saying? Those boys from out there. Was that Lansing out there? Lansing, Michigan? East Lansing. I should know that. My wife is kind of like from there a little bit. But
kind of a little bit
from there. Gary, Indiana, what's up? No, but North Carolina State versus Louisville. It's another one. North Carolina State.
Only other top 25 matchup of the league.
That's 23 versus whatever Louisville is. Louisville's gotta be
24 versus 17.
20. Okay, and it's not saying much. I got Louisville. Who you got?
I'm gonna stick with Louisville.
Louisville. I think Lamar Jackson looks good against ACC people besides Clemson. So
NC State just has this reputation over the past couple of seasons of playing everybody very close.
Yes.
They're like the Tennessee of the ACC. They just they play really close, and you think they're gonna win, and then they just lose.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson has another field day against a team that no one really cares about in NC State. They beat a wounded Florida State team, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're top 25." Florida State just isn't the same without their quarterback being injured. They finally win a game. They beat Wake Forest.
Who was also undefeated prior to.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. We'll find out. So it's a crazy week. Like I said, Team Brian has Michigan State. Team Carlos, I have Michigan, the Wolverines. So please like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Who you got, Michigan or Michigan State? Let us know in the comments below. Before we wrap off, man, if the playoffs started right now, who's your top four?
I am sticking with AP again. I don't think there's any reason to move any of these teams outside of their current positions. So Alabama number 1, Clemson number 2, Oklahoma number 3, and Penn State number 4. I will throw out on a side there, though, that Oklahoma is probably the shakiest of those 4 teams. And it's kind of a toss-up right now between throwing in a one-loss Georgia State that may one-loss Georgia that may have only lost the championship to Alabama.
Okay.
Because there's really.
Or who?
I mean, you at that point you're looking at in order to beat that type of a resume, you have to be an undefeated conference champion.
Right.
And there aren't any strong conferences right now.
So you're saying what if there was an undefeated Washington versus a one-loss Georgia?
I think that would be a toss-up, man.
It'll be how they fared against Bama. If they get blown out, you can easily say, okay, Washington can get in. But if I think it was a close game and you still lose, I'm picking a one-loss Georgia team over undefeated Washington team. Or dare I say maybe an undefeated Penn State team. I'm just saying. But that's your top 4, so you're going to stick with the AP, Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Penn State. Well, I'm going to go I don't know why I'm so delusional, but I'm still saying it. Michigan is number one, baby. Michigan
6
all
weeks
the
in a
way.
row.
6
weeks in a row.
It will not change, but I guarantee their first loss, they're out the top. They're out.
All right. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that.
One loss and they're out the top 4. I guarantee you. I got Michigan 1. I got Bama 2. I got Clemson 3. I had USC for this whole entire time, but guess what? They're out. My new team now, I'm putting in Georgia. I think a one-loss Georgia. If they lose to Alabama, they will still get that 4th seed, in my opinion. I got, so basically, I'm going to have Michigan versus Georgia and Bama versus Clemson, which is, I would hate that, though. Like, Bama Clemson in the first round, that would suck. but
that would be good. That would be the best way to go, though, honestly.
It will be, yeah.
Because instead of giving you, like, I mean, you know, if you go by the logic of thinking Alabama and Clemson are as good as everybody thinks they are, then if you put them on opposite sides, you get 2 really bad games where Bama and Clemson just destroy whoever it is they play.
Right.
And you get 1 really good national championship game.
There you go.
This way, you get a really good Georgia team versus a questionably good Michigan team, which should be a very good matchup for one game.
Right.
And you also get a very good Bama versus Clemson
There
rematch.
you go, hey.
And then, you know, that makes for a somewhat interesting national title because, you know, everybody comes to play in a national title game. So
there we go. So, hey, tell us how you feel. Who is your top 4 for this week as well? Like, comment, and down below, you know, how we do that. So, for Brian Wilkerson from Base on Balls, I am your host, Carlos Clayton. Uneducated represents Uneducated Sports Talk. Ain't no time with his fans. Stay smart. Stay uneducated. Till next week. Peace.